Welcome back to 1320 Time Stream for the Oracle section. Okay, so just gonna right now quickly spam the daily energies from the app to you. Spamming the rhythmic wind at you. The helping power, the rhythmic earth. Again, the guiding power, which is identical to the central power, hence the guided by my own power doubled. The challenging power, which is the rhythmic human, yellow of course, because all humans are yellow within this system. And the hidden power, which is the galactic storm. So I'll just come up into our helping power here, the earth. That's an interesting one here. It wants to come forward today because the earth is like in a conceptual format, it's actually very cosmic, of a seal having to do with the mind. The symbol kind of represents the smoke, the rising smoke from the incense, or if you see the warrior energy, you'll notice that they have very similar kind of question mark looking symbol there, kind of spirally symbol, and the warrior is 16 and the earth is 17. It kind of represents, like, the warrior is like that smoke or that thing that's on the inside, which is why it's asking questions, and the earth represents the rising of thought or the mental patterns or the smoke rising. So together they are the candle and the smoke. And that's why the warrior has the kind of on and off function of like the candle and or the burning wax. When it is the burning candle, the earth or the thought, the motion of thoughts is going. That's why the earth actually is a much more cosmic seal, which I find really funny or kind of, unique because it represents the earth. I feel it could also even represent that the earth is actually largely a thought form. Just slightly meditate on that. So I feel that even as I'm getting into this, more relativity is forming around it, so I'll just go with it. But the helping power of the day could be like organizing our thoughts, organizing our mental paradigm, right? Equalizing that. Maybe there's some stuff that doesn't serve us. And it's kind of interesting because the next sign over is the mirror, right? As we saw yesterday in our helping power, the helping power of the dragon was the mirror. Helping power of the sun was the storm. Helping power tomorrow will actually be the warrior. And so it's going to go down in our signs, backwards in our signs on the helping power. They go down one each day. So you get to see how the different helping, guiding, challenging, hidden powers have forward motions, backward motions, depending on what they are. It's very unique that way. And in that way, we can also look at those patterns and recognize the kind of passage or time spiral, the motion of fourth dimensional time, and that's how we can track synchronicities, which is another word of the earth, is synchronicity. So we're organizing or taking a look at the larger blueprint of synchronicity, the fourth dimension, the mind, so to speak. And not unlike the mirror, organizing our thoughts, but they're not necessarily reflections, because the mirror has that aspect of reflectionality. And so the earth, we may not actually have reflective capacity. While some may still be reflective, I find the earth is more of a blueprinting capacity. It's more like units or frameworks or map work. And so there's less of an identity towards that and more of an, I don't even have the word for it. I want to say aspect, but aspect is still kind of like a totemic or a quality. But anyway, that's kind of the general energy of that. But it also, I feel, represents the aspects of the body. A day to take a look at your diet or your food. Take a look at organizing how your intake around that is. Organizing how you and the earth show up for each other. How you show up for the earth. How you participate in the earth. How you wish it to show up for you by enhancing or participating more, increasing your relationship with it. If you want that garden to grow, well, you got to plant those seeds. It ain't just gonna grow for you, right? So maybe go organize those seeds. Maybe that's a rhythmic seed day that you want to do that. But that earth energy is still in that earth spectrum if we're associating that way. We can also play with those earth medicines, those totems, the bear and eagle totems, those Mesoamerican and First Nations kind of energy, right? Because this system is actually largely associated with the Mesoamerican, the Mayans, the Aztec, the Mixtec, this whole Nahuatl, right? All these beings, and is said to have come from the Pleiades energy. And we talked a little bit about that, about how the Hunab Ku is transmitting through the central singularity. And Alcyon picks that up, the other central suns pick it up, but we're close to the Alcyonic central sun. So the Pleiades, the reason I say as is said, because I'm not going to tell you something is or isn't if you have a different structured paradigm. So the way I tend to communicate is to invite you to entertain a thought, or to invite you to engage a frequency. I particularly engage these frequencies. I work with interdimensional intelligence in a whole number of different ways, mostly concerning this particular work as a format of communication and interdimensional travel. And so these frequencies, myself, I don't actually see these alien races as people would see them, as like physical incarnations like us. I don't see them like that. What I see them as is different frequency bandwidths. The Pleiadians are a frequency bandwidth that could be represented by an engagement with the heart, or different chakra and body alignments that emit a certain tone, and this creates a different interdimensional or cosmic or galactic alignment, and that is the frequency of the Pleiades. And so there's like ancient memory or intergalactic or akashic memory that gets transmitted through there, that synchronizes you with an aspect of creation that allows you to embody a fundamentality. This is like galactic or universal knowledge. And so to me, all of the kind of like, alien races are less so much about like, the blue people and the green people and the red people and, the grays, and like all this kind of, hierarchy of spatial celestial races. I'm not denying the plausibility of that existence, but I directly work with the dynamic of vibration, and so each one of these kind of races is a vibration, right? You could come into that like, gray or that archontic frequency, which is much more parasitical or hungry or malicious, right? And so that's how, if we were in a meditation or if we're in a party, and things started to get kind of weird, I might communicate to someone, hey, it's getting a little gray in here, or it's getting a little archontic. People are over drinking, and maybe people are being really lewd to women or whatever, kind of parasitical, kind of hungry, but not in a healthy way. I would consider that like archontic, right? So I use these kind of descriptions as ways of measuring or communicating an energy, right? And so I feel that this kind of works into this little description, this little channel here on the rhythmic earth, because we're equalizing those thought forms, those blueprints, right? Okay, so that was a good one. We have the rhythmic wind. So I'm going to skip the guiding power today, because all you really have to do is go to the wave spell section, and there's a nice little download on the wind, including the download of the code spell. I feel really kind of exemplifies what I would say about the guiding power, other than, we're really being guided by that energy. And I find, because we're being guided by the energy, the main portion of the day, which is kind of reflected by everything, is naturally reflecting the guiding power. So it's not like the guiding power will have the quality of the guiding energy and the central energy won't. They're identical. They're not really two separate entities. They are represented visually as separate aspects, but they are unified as a frequency field. So So that feels very natural to me. Now let's go into the challenging power, which is like the evening time of the day. If we're working with it that way. I tend to observe kind of everything simultaneously, live within the this and that contradiction, and communicate more fully with how reality wants to show up for me, so that I can see what I am communicating myself through the experience of reality in this creation of reality that we share with each other, that we share with ourselves, our dream. I find the archetypes are very useful here in this way. The living energies, and it's hard to say where that living energies come from, right? Where does the sentience come from? And I feel, someone may say, oh, God, right? But that's a word representing a separation agreement, that God is somewhere out there. There is nothing out there. And in the science that phenomenally portrays that all of reality is actually a projection from a collective consciousness, when we start getting into fifth dimensional mechanics, we can see quite clearly that we are invested in a crystallized state, which is actually what is responsible for crystallizing the very awareness that we're experiencing reality through. So while there is a separationalism and an objectionalism within the perceptual framework of our individuality, that is, you could say, a causation or an emanation or a radiation or a radiance of this fifth and higher dimensional architecture that has a singular awareness. And so as we're moving through those archetypes, through those time, we are God. We are God, goddess, right? Because we are not separate from the source of that awareness and from how it's showing up in us as the ultimate primary function, identification, and kind of ultimate frequency and spirit frequency experience that any of us can really portray, that we are embodied awareness, even outside of any identification with our gender, with our body, with our culture. Every single one of those things is an external phenomenology. We are born and unborn awareness, and this itself as a source, I would consider that God, goddess energy. Even everything in the universe still begs the riddle of how did that get there. It doesn't matter what the galactic drama is. It doesn't matter what the galactic history is. None of that matters, because at the core of it, there is still the fundamental mystery of existence itself. And that is within you. That is nestled seemingly in your head, in your skull, even though that's only really a positionary data. That sentience, even though it's largely marked by, say, hearing and sight, because it seems that the awareness is really taking in a lot of the sight energy. But if you close your eyes, it's very easy for that energy to become non-localized, right? Because you allow the rest of your senses to really pick up where your eyes left off or your ears left off. Your senses kind of equalize and begin to explain and experience the holism of how vast awareness really is, of how dynamic the source of that collective consciousness, that vibrational expansion, which is so equally expanded as it is contracted in its wholeness. It's not even a duality. It doesn't exist as a binary function. It exists as a holistic totality, which everything in creation and non-creation, before and after time, so to speak, exists within it in an eternal now. So much so that we can't even speak. And we could say that the very aspect of it is nothing, or the black hole. All of these are still fake representations. So all of us have the ability to get into that variance. So I guess that could be a subsidiary energy of the wind, It could be a precursor into the human, because the human is the influencer. I find this very interesting. The human is kind of a very individual representative force. we could even, bring up, just because we were playing with the ideas earlier, of those cosmic or alien races, right? Now, the human influence, free will, and wisdom. I really like this one, because in a lot of, like, in the Nahuatl tub, Malinali, or the twisted herb, it represented sacred inebriation, right? So the human is like, it's also the medicine worker, right? And so when we go into the medicine energy, when we go into the sacred mushrooms, when we go into the ayahuasca journeys, the iboga, other medicines and journeying type of catalyst plans that beings can go into, even including just altered states of consciousness like alcohol or smoke or any of these things, they form an influence on the body, and they also form an influence on other people. They change the vibration of the body, and each one of these substances opens us up to different formats or channels of intelligence. And so I feel one of the wisdoms here is, I want to bring the rhythmic tone into the human and say, it's an opportunity, or we be challenged to organize or balance this medicine use, how we're being influenced, how we're influencing others, how we're showing up in that influential matrix, in our influential dynamic, right? We're in an ayahuasca journey, and the being, the shaman, the shamanka, who's guiding the journey, is dealing with a collective consciousness, helping all the participators deal with and keep the whole sphere stable from any entities that may want to come in based upon the holes that we may have in our energy fields because of our traumas, things like this, because of identifications, because of agreements, because of contracts, right? Those contracts, those mental dialogues, they're not just with ourself. They're all frequency related. So it's like running a program. The mind is kind of like the computer screen in a way that you can witness the program that's running. And then the mind-emotional connection, the mind-body connection. The mind has the ability to program and project. Many other abilities too, but just felt to cover that. And so I find that aspect of the human, we'll get to free will in a second, but this other aspect of the human is just that, the human. Humans are influencers. We influence each other. So I find the very nature of this ebb in other, Mayan energies, Nahuatl energies, you don't see it represented as the human. But I feel this description of the energy is very accurate. Because we as humans, we influence each other. We challenge each other. We push each other. Just like the medicines, just like the other influences in our nature, all of the influences are basically human-based. Outside of nature, you can hear it in the background, it's raining here. That's an influence. That is a natural influence. Right? So yes, it's true. Not all influential nature is human-based. But I feel as a human, influence, I feel, is very naturally defined through our self-expression. I would go as far as saying, I would tap back into the earth energy here to say that we can't really say how animals and nature are experiencing things. Because we can, to this date, I feel, only rely upon our projection and our belief on what the animals are doing, or what they're experiencing, or what they're feeling. When we see the video talking about the eagle and what it's doing, or the jaguar and what it's doing, or the elephant. And the fact of the matter is, we may legitimately be influencing its behavior through our very electromagnetic presence, changing the very aptitude. So again, I feel this really exemplifies the human's nature of influential presence. The human representing influence. Nature itself, I at least have this idea that, take humans completely out of the picture. Mind you, if humans are out of the picture, we wouldn't necessarily have a localized awareness to be perceiving anything from. For all we know, with this perceptual humanness out of the picture, nothing would even exist. Because it seems, now I say seems, because I feel this rides heavily on what I call anchorage, that awareness is currently anchored, as the Toltecs would call it, a first attention, first level of awareness within the human body, the human experience, the human psyche. It could very well become anchored somewhere else as a general electromagnetically embodied dynamic pressure of intentful awareness that could become whole global. It could become biospherical, right? We're starting to get into 6th, 7th, and 8th dimensional consciousness as these expressions begin to take shape. And so that brings me to the aspect of free will with the human, as it's like the human beckons us to master, or at least take account of, our free will, because we can't really master anything. But I feel that word attempts to critically imply taking something seriously, or bringing discernment onto the ability to decide around something. And so the human really exemplifies, well, I'm going to influence you. I'm going to bring influences you're going to like and what you're not going to like. I'm going to make you doubt yourself. I'm going to make you uncertain. So it beckons for you to know yourself. And that really exemplifies free will, to make the decision, yes, that's awesome. No, I don't want any alcohol in the house. In fact, if you have alcohol in your body, you're not even freaking welcome here, right? That is not cool. This is a temple. You can't come in here drunk. That's not happening. Okay, take that elsewhere. Quit if you can. It's just so much better for you, right? And so it's like all these energies that we're sharing with each other really ride on those waves of influence and free will. And I like how the human's last word ends up, which is wisdom. That free will, how you apply yourself. Wow, maybe sometimes you accidentally kick yourself because you have that drink and you get shit-faced and you feel like ass tomorrow. In fact, you miss picking up your child from school or whatever because you acted a fool. You acted like a fool, right? You felt it would be rewarding to you because you've been kind of, a really straight parent for a while, or whatever. I'm just creating this story out of nowhere. And you want a bit of, letting the edge off. You're part of your friend who is bringing these influences maybe in your door all the time or whatever. You decide to do the thing. You really don't like that. So that brings you some wisdom. Well, I ain't going to do that. I'm going to suffer the consequences, and I'm going to really rebuff myself on the inside and say the value and the quality of life that I already have wasn't worth letting go of. In fact, it was better. So now I know how to direct my free will more, right? And so this wisdom quality of, as we choose, the power of choice can be considered free will. The free will and choice kind of go hand in hand in the human's expression. Okay. Wisdom here. The organizational or kind of rhythmic tone aspect is kind of saying, it's time to equalize our influences. It's time to organize. Maybe we're at a point where, all winter we've been, doing something that as the summer comes around, the energy is shifting. And so we have to organize. We have to, maybe for some people who really use that linear time, balance their time, right? How things are influencing you. You can't do everything. You can give everything a little bit, that kind of energy. There's this organization which is kind of spreading it out in a way that everything gets nurtured, everything gets a little bit of love. There's kind of this energy in the rhythmic tone, that the organization, the equality, the balancing, right? Those energies. And so also being the challenging power, this can be difficult. There can be maybe a battle of exchange. Maybe you're having a hard time with yourself. I know, and the reason I go a lot into the medicine, the drug use, the alcoholism, things like that, with the human is because of how much in my personal life, once I had associated it with Malinali, the twisted herb, sacred inebriation, the human brought about the light and shadow side that I began to see in the world as one of the primary things that humans are consistently doing. Humans are consistently consuming something. And so I find the human energy really kind of relates to that. Everything is affecting and influencing the body. Sugars, caffeines, nicotines, THC, just to name a couple of them, alcohol. And those are the more legally and supported, versions. We have many other things too, from the addictive to the outright positive scale of drug to medicine use. And I found in my working in life with sacred medicine and with shamanic practices and these kind of meditations, I've seen many different sides of many different things in many different people at many different times. And so I feel the substance-oriented energy, even so much as, burning some sage or putting on some aromatherapy essential oils, it's a substance that's now affecting you and is affecting all around you because it has an aroma, it has a sense aptitude. And I feel that's hidden in the human's energy, is because the human is kind of represented and known by its 5 sense aptitude in the physical dimension. And so those things that are influencing us usually influence a combination of those 5 senses, and they come into our proximity somehow. And the more metaphysical, we could have entities come into our proximity, we could have angelic beings, we could have positive frequencies, positive emotions, or negative strings of all these things influencing us in our dream state and all this kind of stuff. And we can have humans showing up in physical space doing all these things. So, right, there may be challenges around this in this time of the day, challenges around shifting our energy, shifting our influences, maybe having to positively influence another. Maybe we're called to, based upon how our dialogue of communication was earlier, maybe there's I want to deliver something to them, but I don't want to actually devastate them or hurt them because it's a hard message. I know they're trying their hardest, but this is just too much. Right? Or maybe in the same respect, I want to communicate something and I don't want this person to fucking punch me out. Right? This person has a history for not listening or whatever. So many scenarios, but these energies show up as non-embodied forces in every state of embodiment that's present. And so their qualities begin to become very clear when we say, the human energy is present. But 5 different people can have completely different experiences. And most of the time for me, because I've been working with these permutations for so long, that I can identify, check it. There's the energy, there's the energy, there's the energy. In fact, I'll go as far as to say this is why the ancient Maya, because they were working with these synchronometrical, you could call it a calendar, but it's not a debt-keeping book, so you can't really call it a calendar, cycle tracking, right? But to the point of the interdimensional, metaphysical, meditational, universal embodiment aspect of it. And so being able to not just know, but feel and be and embody the rhythm of all of these pulses of geometries, of resonance, of wavelength, of frequency, because that's all this is. Right? These are different frequencies. So through time, through the time spiral, through the time stream, prophecy was a tool of being able to track the pulse. And based upon a cultural or world relativity, one could accurately predict the future because one can see the elements factored by time showing up as life, as instances of life. So I feel that's a good one for the human. Let's go to the storm, the galactic storm. Again, I feel there's a very deep parallel between the opposing tones. This is the right and the left shoulder. Rhythmic tone being the right shoulder, left shoulder being the galactic tone. And remember, this is the hidden power, nighttime power. All the powers are also present during the day as well. And it's about this, the rhythmic tone really brings that, equalization, that organization, that balance energy. And I feel is reflected in the galactic tone as harmony and integrity, right? Equality, harmony. There's a parallel here. Organization, balance, integrity. There's a parallel here, right? And so in this way, right, they're like the 2 reflections of the same energy. I can't really describe how that is because they're so unique and individual, but so intertwined as a similitude. So I'll just bring that awareness to like having that storm, having that catalytic, having that self-generational. For me, there's rain here all around me. Right? So that storm for me can have, actually, you know what? I'm going to share something with you right now that just hit me as I'm doing the meditation. As you know, the storm is on the bottom here, the bottom of the oracle. Now, I'm sitting outside, and we live in a basement suite. So above me is it's the upstairs of the suite. Directly above my head is a deck where there's another floor. I'm sitting below the deck on a nice blanket with some stones because it's really dry. I find it interesting because I'm experiencing the storm and I'm on the bottom level. I'm under the deck, which would be considered the main level. And so as another kind of expression, the main level, which could be represented by the wind, because it's on that main area. You could even see the main axis, which is the helping the main day and the challenging power. I'm below that. And so for me, and the reason I'm giving this expression is because these energies show up in so many different ways. Fourth dimensional energy is highly reflective. And what's that word? Analogic. Analogs. Exactly. And analogs. Analogos. And so for me, it represents synchronicity. Oh, look, at the time that I'm doing this thing, I feel the nature of synchronistic connection. And it doesn't matter what I'm doing or how it shows up. And this is why I feel these systems have helped us. And I feel like what I'm saying now is a direct channel from the storm energy, because it's about integrating our self-generation, finding harmony with that. Even people who are like, oh, I had the most horrible day, or I had an argument, or I broke up with my lover, or any of these energies. It was supposed to happen. No matter how much you resist a thing, in that other scene of like, oh, that mom or that dad drank with a friend, forgot the kid, felt horrible, kid was even mad, they learned something. The storm's energy catalyzed something. But where we're going with that is you can see the pattern. And when the harmonic pattern is recognized, when the fourth dimensional pattern is recognized, that is part of the attunement factor of this very evolution that we're speaking of. I am right now absolutely and holistically connected with all things. And as this system, because I'm so endowed with this system, shows up for me, because I allow myself, I make myself available to it. I open myself to its major aspects and its nuances. I have direct communication and I trust its guidance. When the archetypes show up in my mind and say, hey, do a thing, I don't necessarily logically know how it's going to unfold. The magic happens, things align. I see that I can trust the hyper-intelligence that I am part of. And that is synchronometry. There's synchronometry and synchronometry. Synchronometrical is like the alignment and the alliance one has with the crystal consciousness sense that has a 5 sense capacity. At times you can see it, at times you can hear it, at times you can feel it, you can even taste it as it shows up with you, because everything is resonance. Different vibrations of this now, different vibrations of the experience. And so the galactic tone helps us bring harmony and integrity to how we're generating ourselves. Finding that, the other part about this tone that I like is in all the busyness that it can represent the mess, maybe because it's so chaotic sometimes. There's an eye of the storm, there's an eye of the tornado, where the shearing effect or the vortex, which is on the outside, isn't as strong. In fact, it's at complete peace. And as I look around me, because I'm just kind of into this little analogy, I'm actually sitting in the middle of the yard, in the middle of the backyard here. I didn't realize any of this before. And so I'm kind of in the center of the vortex representing the storm because of the rain. At the bottom, me under the deck, Wow, I love it. So I feel so much more connected. I love sharing this with you. I invite you to look at those simple things. Like I know other ones that I've seen a lot of is, oh, we just start reading the Daily Oracle in a meditation. I'm like, what's the helping power of the day? Well, in this case, it's like, the helping power is the rhythmic earth. To my right is sitting a person who is the rhythmic earth. To my left, oh my God, it's the rhythmic human. Wow. The astonishingness of how many times that exact phenomenon has shown up in my life is staggering, and shows me how alive this force is. Just the other day, a dear friend that we had here, I just decided to, let's talk about some daily energies. And what day is it? Oh, it was, I believe, the Galactic Monkey. The person who was over, that's her cosmic birthday. It was her galactic birthday. And of course, her higher self, our fourth dimensional holon, excited those sensory filaments in me, and I showed up and decided to communicate this energy, completely unknowing to what would occur. Now, I love this stuff. Find our harmony, find our integration in this. Find that love in this. Find your voice. Find the way that it shows up for you. I think that's going to really complete. That was kind of a big one. I really felt that channel. There's a lot of information that flowed through on that oracle section. I'll leave it there, and we'll, get ready for the mind pyramid breath meditation. You're participating in the 1320 time stream. Stay tuned for the mind pyramid meditation.